Boldwood presents The Confession, written by M.A. Hunter and read by Julie Maisie. Chapter 1. Thursday. The court is so quiet that all I can hear is my racing heart. We've waited 3 days for the panel of 5 to deliberate and reach consensus. But Damien has been waiting 7 years for justice to finally be delivered. I dare not glance over at him behind the large wall of glass, because if I see his reaction to bad news, I won't be able to stop myself from breaking down. It's going to be okay. It's plain as day that he didn't kill Rodrigo. The 5 judges at the front of the court are the most senior in the UK, and their only job is to ensure the criminal justice system is working correctly. Yet, I can't escape the uneasy feeling in the pit of my stomach that the panel is made up of 4 men in their late 60s and early 70s, plus one token woman who is the oldest of the lot, doesn't fill me with confidence. In a country as diverse as ours, how are there no persons of colour qualified to hear appeals such as Damien's? And I don't believe a single one of them knows what it's like for 2 men to be so in love that murder is the least likely outcome. The senior judge shuffles the papers before him, before clearing his throat. The clerk asks Damien to stand, and I hear his seat creak as he complies. I hold my breath and cross the fingers on both hands, sending all the positive thoughts I can muster to Damien. Having considered the judgments of the lower courts and the new evidence introduced at this late stage, it is the judgment of this court that Mr. Damien Johnson's conviction for the unlawful killing of Mr. Rodrigo Johnson should be immediately overturned. My head snaps around to the dock, and I see the look of shock and relief on Damien's face. There is a small cheer from the handful of friends who've been here with Damien since the case started 2 weeks ago. But then, I also hear the cries of anguish reverberating from the opposite side of the viewing gallery, where Rodrigo's brother and sister and the team of detectives who promised them justice are seated. As relieved as I am for Damien, I can't begin to understand how double-edged the verdict is for them. It's almost 8 years since Rodrigo was snatched away from them, and yet all today proves is that the person who ended his life is still at large, still breathing the same air as them. I want to offer them words of condolence, but they've already made their views of me and my work abundantly clear. I look back over to Damien, who mouths his thanks before burying his head in his hands. For him, the verdict is also bittersweet. Tonight he will be able to sleep in his own bed for the first time in nearly a decade. But I'd bet he'd give it all up for one more moment with Rodrigo. The senior judge concludes his judgment, citing the reasons they don't believe statutory and case law were properly followed previously. And even though he specifically cites the report I provided to the court, I'm not here for plaudits or acclaim. The clerk invites everyone to stand while the 5 pensioners, in red robes, shuffle back to the small room behind the court, and the clamour inside rises. Over my shoulder, someone, I think it's Rodrigo's sister, is wailing. Damien's barrister and solicitor are hugging and patting one another on the back, while the prosecuting barrister congratulates them before beating a hasty retreat. I remain seated, taking it all in. I glance over to the dock again, where I can see Damien is talking to his mum through the panel. She can barely stand, so bad is her arthritis, but I can see the tears of joy streaming down her face. When she first approached me earlier this year, begging me to look into her son's case, I was instantly drawn in by her passionate assertion that he couldn't have inflicted the severe and sustained beating that ended Rodrigo's life. I've met enough parents who swear blind that their child is innocent, but it was her description of the actions of the investigative team that piqued my interest. She looks over and offers a little wave, and I reciprocate. "She's done it again," Barrister Robert Timmins Drake's voice booms, and I see the man in black heading towards me. He pulls off the white wig and slaps it against his hand, a huge smile breaking across his face. "I was just saying to Eddie that as soon as I heard you were involved, I just knew we were going to win. This makes it 10 in a row, doesn't it?" I noticed Damien's solicitor, Eddie Douglas, skulking away, an unlit cigarette already between his dry lips. I didn't expect him to show any gratitude, as had he done his job properly in the first place, Damien would have walked free a lot sooner. Why he stuck with Eddie as his solicitor for all this time is beyond me, as I can think of dozens of better qualified solicitors who would have stepped into the breach. "How you worked out that the barman was lying about what time Damien left the club that night is beyond me," Timmins Drake continues. "We all have tells when we're being deceitful," I say, underplaying just how well my mind is somehow able to cut through most people's bullshit. It was just fortunate that his statement was video recorded by the police. I don't think I'd have so easily spotted the dishonesty otherwise. "Well, we are truly indebted to you. Are you coming out to celebrate?" I look at my watch and shake my head. It's a little early, isn't it? "You know what they say, it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. Come on, you've earned it. And in fact, I will make sure you don't have to pay for a drink all night. It's the least we can do for the woman of the hour." Whilst Damien's acquittal is cause for celebration after all he's been put through, any joy is tainted with the fact that Rodrigo is still dead. I look back over at Rodrigo's sister, who is being comforted by one of the detectives. "We'll be in the Seven Stars in Holborn when you're ready to join us," Robert continues, now heading over to the dock to, presumably, advise Damien about his next steps and to get him processed out. I collect my handbag and pull out my phone, immediately seeing a missed call from my business partner, Sasha. She knew I was going to be here all morning and that my phone would be on silent, but she hasn't left a message. I'll call her back when I eventually get outside, though I'd prefer to wait for the throng of gathered journalists to unblock the main entrance to the courthouse. I stand and turn to head out, when a portly man with a shaved head and grey handlebar moustache steps out and blocks my way. "I really don't know how you can sleep at night, knowing you've colluded to set a convicted killer free." I try to sidestep him, but he mirrors my move. "If you don't mind, Detective Roach, I have places to be." "I imagine you'll be heading to the Seven Stars with the rest of your cronies, whilst an innocent man's family drown their sorrows at home." I grind my teeth, determined not to let him get to me. You still can't see that there were 2 victims in this case. Rodrigo Johnson, who was beaten to death in the safety of his own home, and his husband, who you pinned all your best hopes on for a quick conviction. He scoffs. "You're so quick to forget that your pal Damien twice put the victim in hospital in the months prior to his passing. Leopards don't change their spots, Miss Veritas." According to Damien, it was Rodrigo who instigated the 2 fights he's alluding to, but both had been in counselling to overcome their anger management issues. Damien never denied their dark history, but it was his word against that of Rodrigo's disapproving family. "Remind me, Detective Roach, did you ever consider any other suspects in your investigation?" "Oh no, that's right. You decided Damien was guilty from the first moment you met him." He scoffs again. "You know as well as I do that 99 times out of 100, the victim's spouse or partner is the most likely perpetrator of a murder." "Exactly. But what happens in the 1% of cases where that isn't true?" "You need to check your attitude, love." "I need to check my attitude. What about yours? You found a grief-stricken homosexual person of colour who didn't meet your narrow parameters of normal, and you targeted him for a quick resolution rather than focusing on finding out the truth." Don't bring this down to race and sexuality. It had nothing to do with that. He has a history of drug taking and alcoholism, and on the night in question he was seen snorting coke off one of the toilet cisterns in the club. Rodrigo was also heard arguing with someone in their flat less than an hour before he died. But we now know that Damien was still in the club when Rodrigo was attacked. Had you and your team investigated properly, you would have discovered it was impossible for Damien to be guilty. Semantics. We both know there is nobody who can actually corroborate where Damien was at the time of the attack. We only know the barman lied about seeing Damien leave when he said he did. Of course, it would help if your client could recall any of what happened that night. I know he's just trying to get a rise out of me, because that's how men like him behave, putting others down in an effort to feel superior. Verdicts like today must be great for business though, right? He continues. I bet you love seeing your name up in lights as the hero who saved the day again. I bet you live for it. And all the better that your client is from a minority group as well. He doesn't wait for me to correct him, turning and shuffling, whistling under his breath. I'm about to hurry after him and give him a piece of my mind when I see Sasha is calling again. Yes, I answer, struggling to keep my petulance in check. Hey, I thought it was good news today. You don't sound happy. I take a deep breath and slowly let it out. I'll be fine. And yes, Damien has been acquitted. Oh, that's great news. It really is. You must be thrilled. I don't tell her how I'm really feeling. I thought it best to remind you that you have that interview with Peter Graves this afternoon, in case you were thinking of joining Damien to celebrate. I clamped my eyes shut in frustration. I had forgotten all about Graves's request to meet today. Oh, can't you do it instead? I ask, adopting my child voice. Please, we both know you're the real brains of this little operation. It's you who should be in the spotlight, not me. Ha! Nice try, but flattery will get you nowhere. And this little operation will fold if we don't generate some more clients. What are you talking about? We've got a huge list of referrals. I'm talking about paying clients, Abby. I admire your dedication to these pro bono crusades of yours, but they don't pay the rent. The interview will be featured in the weekend pullout of the newspaper. It's a great opportunity to showcase what you do and your incredible success rate. It's free advertising. You know I wouldn't ask unless I thought it was vital to our survival. I know she's right, and that is why we work so well together. She is the stick I need to stay on the straight and narrow. I confirm I'll return to the office to meet Graves, and as I exit the courtroom, I see that Damien has just stepped out into the cold grey air. Cameras flash as he drops to his knees and breaks down in tears. Chapter 2. Despite promising Sasha I'd immediately return to the office, I don't rush, taking a more secluded route back, buying myself time to compose my thoughts. I pull my coat tight around my waist, but it does little to fend off the bitter wintry wind. London always feels so magical at this time of year, with shop windows bright and glittery, and the large neon decorations that hang above the road waiting to be lit. My eyes are glued to the screen in my hand as I search for any information I can learn about Peter Graves before I encounter him. I can't say I recognise his name, but when I see he works for the Daily Boar newspaper, I'm not surprised his name and face don't ring any bells. I must remember not to refer to it as the Daily Boar when we meet. It's impossible to tell how tall he is from the professional headshot that accompanies his profile page on the newspaper website. But he has piercing blue eyes and a mop of chestnut brown hair, and if I had to guess, I'd say he's not long since graduated from journalism school or wherever he trained. I skim the highlights of the CV that accompanies the headshot. Born and raised in Dorset, He graduated from Cambridge and worked at several online periodicals before taking over the features section with his current employers. The titles of his last few pieces all read as barely human interest stories. I've yet to meet him, but already I have a feeling of dread about our impending encounter. I hear Sasha's voice reminding me I just need to focus on stories about the cases I've worked on. If he starts probing into my background, I simply need to tell him it's far less interesting than some of the miscarriages of justice I've helped overturn. I'm relieved the interview is taking place in our offices rather than at his. My chest is already tightening, but at least I'll have my things around me. And if his questions become too much, I'll just have to tell him something urgent has come up and rearrange the interview for another day. I'll also insist it's via telephone rather than face-to-face. I can see our offices up ahead. I say our offices, when really it's just a 2-bedroom flat above a fancy wine bar where we've installed desks instead of beds. I have the largest room to accommodate the library of criminology and behavioural science books I've accumulated over the years. Sasha always jokes that I should write my own book, sharing aspects of how I'm seemingly able to see the details that others miss, but I don't even know how to explain this gift bestowed upon me. It isn't something I can switch on at will. If I could, God knows my love life would be a lot more active than it is. In a courtroom, I can instantly sense when someone is hiding the truth. But when a handsome man approaches in a bar or restaurant, it abandons me. This is why I've now entrusted Sasha with all decisions affecting potential relationships. I can't be trusted. I cross the road and take a deep breath before punching in the code on the panel beside the door at the rear exit of the wine bar, quickly pulling the door closed behind me to shut out the icy air. I ascend the stairs slowly, but the soles of my boots slap the old wooden steps, making it sound as though I'm playing castanets. Sasha emerges from the door at the top of the staircase and flaps her hand in an effort to hurry me up. "He's here," she says in a loud whisper. She air kisses both my cheeks as she always does, her face covered in a skin-tone foundation and with bright red lipstick clinging to every pore of her smile. She's in a tight miniskirt and tights and a crop top, despite the freezing temperatures outside, and it just serves to remind me of the 10-year age gap between us. Sasha is desperate to cling to her youth, whereas I've accepted I've crossed the threshold into my 40s and refuse to make an effort for anyone but myself. Despite our contrasting styles, I know how reliant I am on Sasha's street smarts and organisational skills. She always makes sure I am where I should be at any time of day and is a firm hand when invoicing clients. "You don't need to worry," she says now. "He told me his interview will be focused on the connections your mind makes when tackling a new case and how this has made you a powerhouse in the appeals courts in recent years. I thought it might spare a few ideas for that book we're always talking about." I don't mention that my writing a book is very much her idea rather than mine. I wouldn't know where to start such a mammoth challenge. Interpreting information is where I excel, not dispensing it. And Abby, remember to be polite. This is not one of those arsehole barristers claiming their years of practicing law are more paramount than your ability to read between the lines. It's a fluff piece, I conclude, and she considers this for a moment. "Yes, OK, it is a fluff piece. But what's wrong with that? You're big news right now, and we need to cash in on that while we can. You know what Andy Warhol said about the perilous nature of fame? Fame is the last thing I want. I know what it is to be in the public eye, with every aspect of my life under scrutiny, and it isn't something I ever want to experience again. Just show him that big, beautiful smile of yours and show him why you're my favourite person in the whole world. And in case you still need convincing, if all goes well, I promise to take you out to dinner tonight as a thank you. Anywhere you like, my treat. I raise a single eyebrow. All right, she says, rolling her eyes. Anywhere you like, within a £20 a head limit. I give her a tight squeeze and then open the creaky door and enter. The door to my office is ajar, and I see the mop of brown hair in a pale grey blazer and trousers sitting with his back to me. I take a deep breath and head through, swinging off my bag and throwing it into its usual spot in the corner of the room beneath the window. Peter, I say with false enthusiasm, thrusting out my hand across the desk piled high with books and papers. He stands, clutching the ginger tabby who moved in not long after we did. He shakes my hand and lowers the cat to the floor. He's much taller than I was expecting, a little over 6 feet at best guess. And he looks at least 10 years older than the professional headshot I saw on my phone a moment ago, but maybe 5 or so years younger than me. He's certainly more handsome than I was expecting. Cute cat, he says, retaking his seat across the desk from me. What's his name? Freud, I say, unravelling my scarf and hanging my coat on the back of my chair before sitting. No way. He smiles in disbelief. Well, that's what we call him. He wandered in off the street one day and never left. We took him to the local vet, who scanned the microchip in his neck, and it turned out he used to live here with the previous tenant. But she died, and so we unofficially adopted him. I don't add that I now consume a daily regimen of antihistamines to overcome my allergy. I wasn't sure what to do when he hopped up on my lap, but he seemed to settle quite quickly, so I let him stay there. I hoped you'd see it as a sign that I'm trustworthy. Cats are good judges of character. I don't correct him, forcing a smile instead. Your secretary told me it would be okay to wait in here, he says now, resting his hands on his knees in an open manner. I resist the urge to laugh at his description of Sasha, though she'd get a kick out of it too. Sasha is my business partner, actually. If anything, she's the brains of the operation, keeps the accounts in the black. Would you like me to call her back in so you can... No, it's you I came to meet, Abby. Congratulations on the Damien Johnson acquittal, by the way. I just heard through the grapevine that the verdict was quashed. You must be over the moon. I grind my teeth, thinking about Sasha's words and trying to keep my responses short and polite. It's always good to see justice delivered. And that's 10 victories in the last 3 years, right? That's some record. Somehow it never feels like a win. Had the police and CPS done their jobs properly in the first place, there'd be no wrong to correct. I say sternly, meaning every word. Fixing the truth isn't winning. Graves considers my response and narrows his eyes. Damien Johnson told reporters outside the court that it's all down to you. He personally thanked the one person who believed him from the outset. That's a direct quote. It's you he's talking about there, isn't it? I picture Damien breaking down in front of the journalists, but I snuck out of the rear exit, so I didn't actually hear what he said when addressing them. I honestly don't know. If it is, then I can't shoulder all the responsibility. The whole defence team worked their socks off to secure his release. He considers this before extracting a recording device and placing it on the desk between us. Do you mind? Recording the interview means I can spend my time focusing on your answers, rather than scribbling them down or trying to commit them to memory. I don't want you to think of this as an interview or a Q&A. I find the best interviews are conversational in nature and bring out more of the subject than just the standard corporate responses. That's why I didn't send over my questions in advance, as you requested. I don't think it was an unreasonable request, and had he sent them over, I'd feel better prepared right now. Okay, shall we begin? I ask, gripping the arms of my desk chair. We already have, he counters, smiling again. I'm finding it impossible to read him. He looks so at ease, but I've known plenty of people, men and women, able to mask their true intentions better than the average person. You're being paranoid, I tell myself. Just because he's more handsome than I expected, and difficult to assess, doesn't mean he has malevolent plans. Why don't we start with something simple? He continues, something to break the ice and help settle you. Why don't you tell me how all of this began? All of the appeals I've supported are public record. You can read what was used to support each appeal. And I have. No, what my readers want to know is, who is Abby Veritas, really? You want to know where and when I was born? If you want to go that deep, then that's fine. But what I meant was how and why you decided to pursue criminology as a career, and how you wound up becoming an expert in wrongful conviction cases. I don't know what to say. I suppose I've always had an interest in trying to understand how others think and why they choose certain courses of action over others. Can you give me any early examples of where you did this? For the briefest moment, I picture Faye with her blonde ponytail running off in tears, but I quickly force the memory away. I'm sorry, what was the question? I ask, dragging myself back to the present. I asked whether you have any early examples of reading others. What I'm asking is, was this something you were able to do in school, or did it develop later than that? I puff out my cheeks. I've never really thought about when it started. It's been there for as long as I can remember, though I suppose I didn't realise how unique it was until I was studying psychology at college and was able to see patterns in behaviour quicker than my peers. What was that like? College? Sure. I remember having to reinvent myself and how I embellished my history, making it fit the character my new friends expected me to be. But I don't want to share any of this. Sasha promised it would be less personal and purely focused on our recent cases. It suddenly feels too warm in the office, and I stand, crossing to and opening the window a fraction, welcoming the icy breeze cooling my chest. Hey, Abby, can I make a suggestion? I'm sensing you're maybe not feeling particularly comfortable, and the last thing I want is for you to clam up. I've found subjects are usually less guarded, and it can be easier to generate conversation once the blood is pumping. Why don't we go for a walk somewhere less stuffy? The whole point of conducting the interview in my office was so I'd feel safe, but it isn't helping like I thought it would. I promise that not everything we discuss will wind up in the article, and I will share the draft with you before it goes to print. Maybe I can buy us a coffee somewhere? What do you say? I can't think of a reasonable excuse to say no, so I reluctantly agree, grabbing my coat and scarf and following him out. Chapter 3. The streets are getting busier as the throng of office workers in nearby buildings hunt for lunch. I skipped breakfast this morning as I had no appetite, my nerves about the verdict taking over. But even now I have no desire to eat. Leaving the courtroom and returning for this interview is like I leapt out of the frying pan into the fire. I know these roads like the back of my hand, but Graves hasn't told me where he wants to walk to, and it isn't immediately clear which of us is in charge of the route. Have you worked in this area for long? He asks, as we meander along, the clouds creating a dull grey backdrop to our journey. A few years, yes, I reply. And before you were here, where were you? Why is that relevant? It isn't necessarily. I was just attempting to break the ice. He stops and turns to face me. I'm sensing resistance at the moment, and I want to try and ease any concern you might have. This isn't a witch hunt. There's genuine public interest in you, and I just want to show your human side. If you're looking to interview a colourful character, then I think you should go back and talk to Sasha. There really isn't anything interesting about me. I beg to differ, Abby. There is a place and a time for self-deprecation, but not when your name is being mentioned by every legitimate source of news. I'm really nothing special. I beg to differ. He says so quickly that it's almost like he knew how I would respond. I tell you what, can we do an experiment? What kind of experiment? He raises a finger and asks me to wait before darting into a small newsagent's with a torn canopy over the narrow door. I wrap my arms around myself. The temperature has definitely dropped from earlier, and I don't know how long I can stay out here before my teeth start chattering. Graves returns a moment later with a huge beaming smile, tucking something into his pocket. Shall we go and get a cup of something hot to fight off this chill? He doesn't wait for me to respond, marching off, leaving me to hurry after him. Where are we going? I ask, almost breathless. I know a place that produces the best hot chocolate in London. It's a bit off the beaten track, but those of us who know about it know better than to reveal its secret. I'll take you there, but you must swear not to tell anyone about it. I roll my eyes, but follow along, relieved that he's stopped asking questions for now. There's an assured confidence to him that I'm finding particularly unsettling. Instinct tells me he knows more than he's letting on, and I don't like it when that happens. He turns sharply, cutting into one of London's many smaller cemeteries. The large black gates are open, but the sense of death waiting nearby is impossible to ignore. The tarmac path is dark and twisty, and it feels dangerous following this virtual stranger into a dark hole where overgrown evergreen trees and bushes almost seem to block out the sky. I'm not sure I begin to say, but he quickly cuts me off. I promise you, it is the best hot chocolate you'll ever taste. Trust me. Against my better judgment, I do follow, quickly firing off a message to Sasha to let her know where I am. I'm half expecting her to reply and tell me to get out of there, but instead she tells me how pleased she is that the interview is going well. Sasha, ever the optimist. The path bends around and through the trees until I can no longer see the bustling street behind me. And then suddenly, the trees part, and I see we're in an enclosed space. Identical weathered gravestones line the grass area in the centre of the enclosure, each lined up carefully in a grid-like formation. There are 7 rows and 7 columns, with 7 benches evenly placed around the tarmac path, forming a perfect circle around the site. You'd never know we are a stone's throw away from one of the busiest cities in the world. He directs me to a bench and heads off in the direction of a small hut between 2 of the benches across the grass from us. There is an older woman on one of the benches beside the hut, wrapped in a thick woolen overcoat and with a headscarf pulled tightly around her white straw-like hair. At first glance, she looks like a statue. But then I see the paper cup in her hand slowly rise to her mouth and then return to her lap. What are we doing here? He said he wanted to put me at ease, but has brought me somewhere so morbid, and I feel like we're intruding on others' grief. Graves returns and offers me one of the paper cups he's holding, before joining me on the bench. Give this a try, he says, and tell me if you've tasted better. Won't it be too hot? He shakes his head. It is the perfect temperature. That's one of the reasons it tastes so good. The guy who runs the shack melts the chocolate in warm milk, but keeps the temperature at an even 50 degrees. Go ahead, try it. I remove the plastic lid, and the sweet smell of chocolate hits me in an instant, reminding me of Easter. I delicately place my lips on the edge of the cup and take a sip, quickly followed by a larger swallow. It is just like drinking liquid chocolate, and I'm not going to lie, it is the best hot chocolate I've ever tasted. See? I told you it's the best. How did you find this place? Do you know what this place is? A graveyard? He smiles. Yes, it is, but it's more than that. This cemetery is home to the 49 nurses who died when their hospital was struck by a German V-2 rocket during the Blitz in 1941. Their bodies were recovered from the wreckage, and a local philanthropist donated this section of land for them to be buried in as a mark of respect. I did a piece on it 18 months ago, which I'm guessing you didn't read. He chuckles. I'm sorry, I don't tend to read newspapers anymore. To be sustainable? No, to avoid the agendas of those who own them and their views of what is newsworthy. I instantly hear Sasha's voice in my head. Remember to be polite. Touché. He smiles again, but then frowns as he remembers something. He places his cup on the floor before reaching into his pocket and extracts a packet of playing cards. He removes the plastic seal and then shuffles them. Are you going to do a magic trick? I ask. No, you are. He pulls out 3 cards at random and fans them out, but doesn't show me what they are. In my hand, I am holding a King of Hearts, a 7 of Diamonds, and a 3 of Spades. And am I telling the truth? I've no idea. He stares at me in silence. I'm not a mind reader, if that's what you think. He continues to stare at me, the cards just below his eyeline. Humour me. Based on our brief conversation this morning, and what I'm guessing you probably Googled about me before we met, am I telling the truth about the cards I'm holding? I look into his eyes, searching for the usual ticks and tells I've seen from so many others. I don't understand what he's trying to prove one way or another. It's a 50-50 decision, and I could get lucky with my guess. But if I do, that doesn't prove anything. Or if I guess wrong, does that suddenly mean I'm fallible? I can't tell in whose best interests this game is. Do you want me to be right? He considers this for a moment. I want you to tell me the truth. Fine. You're lying about the cards. He's about to speak again when a second thought strikes me. Actually, I do believe you're holding a king, a 7, and a 3, but not in the suits you said. A large smile breaks across his face as he flips the cards around to face me, and I see a King of Spades, a 7 of Hearts, and a 3 of Diamonds. That is incredible, he says. How did you know? I don't know which of us is more shocked. I genuinely have no explanation for how I sensed he was telling a half-truth. The best lies are partially based on fact. You were trying to suppress your natural tells, so you gave me half the information, but manipulated the rest. Is that how you knew the bartender was lying about the time Damien Johnson left the nightclub? I guess. And what motivated you to help Damien? It was a no-brainer. Anybody in my position would have done the same to help someone in need. I think you give humanity too much credit. He pauses. Is your desire for justice driven by what happened to your sister 30 years ago? Again, an image of Faye with her blonde ponytail crashes into my mind, but this time it's not so easy to disregard. I thought you wanted to know about the appeals I've supported. Absolutely, but I want to get to the crux of what motivates you to take on these, often helpless cases. You were the prosecution's star witness when Faye's killer was on trial, and I just wondered if that's where you got your taste for it. I'm not here to talk about my sister. But you've said before that she was your best friend, and that's what drove you to help the police secure the conviction of Terry Anderson. I never gave permission for that story to be printed. I didn't know the guy I was talking to was a tabloid journalist posing as a student, and I didn't appreciate being front-page news. He tightens his lips and raises his hands in a passive gesture. Alas, there are some real snakes in this profession. You won't hear a word from me justifying that kind of behaviour. It's those kind of ambulance chasers that give the rest of us a bad name. Now, I've been very open with you about what we want to achieve through this article, and your business partner was keen for us to meet and proceed. I don't want to cause a scene, but if he's planning to pursue this line of questioning, then I'm not going to hang around. I believe my readers will have nothing but sympathy for what you and your family had to endure. And my only reference to your sister's murder is to show just how far you've come. That trial and your role in it shaped your future, whether you realised it at the time or not. I don't want people thinking I've benefited from my sister's death in some way. He took her from us, and not a day has gone by when I haven't thought about where she would be now or what she'd be doing if she hadn't been in those woods that day. It would make a great angle for the feature. The criminologist who's never overcome losing her sister to a known sex offender and is now on a crusade to overturn miscarriages of justice. He pauses momentarily, and I've no doubt there will be many of Terry Anderson's victims' families who will understand exactly how you feel. But including it helps give a voice to those who aren't in a position to talk about what he did. I can sense he doesn't necessarily believe what he is saying, but is trying to butter me up nonetheless. Has the television production company contacted you to appear? He asks next. I frown at the question. What are you talking about? His cheeks redden instantly. Oh shit, I assumed you knew. Knew what exactly? That Terry Anderson is appealing his conviction. My eyes widen. I had no idea and would have thought someone would have been in touch to notify me. On what grounds? I just about managed to stammer. New evidence of some sort, I believe. One of the streaming services has offered him big money to allow them to film his campaign and hear from him directly. I had no idea Anderson was in talks about a documentary, and I can't understand who in their right mind would want to watch such a programme. I don't watch a lot of television, and I will never understand the general public's morbid fascination with such shows. I take it from the look of shock and anger they've not been in touch. Doesn't it bother you that he's attempting to profit from your sister's death? I picture Terry Anderson's mugshot that the police showed me all those years ago, and I feel my blood freezing over. Graves moves closer and places a comforting arm around my shoulders. Let me tell the story from your point of view. What Anderson did to Faye, how you saw him in the woods and were able to positively identify him and ensure he was tried not just for Faye's murder, but those of his other 6 victims too. It would be a great side piece to how you've now helped the likes of Damian Johnson to receive justice. After that tabloid hack published his story about me, I vowed I would never use my sister's name to help me get ahead. I hate that the compensation I received from the newspaper is what paid off my student loan and helped Sasha and me set up the business. Don't let Anderson win, Graves continues, but I shrug off his arm. This was the exact reason I didn't want to be interviewed by the Daily Bore. I marched through the tunnel of Evergreen and out of the Gothic gates, not even thinking about where I'm going. I eventually stop when I see the 7 Stars pub ahead and deviate in through the door, ordering a large glass of Chablis. And I don't know if it's just my imagination, but I can't shake the sense that I'm being watched. Chapter 4. Friday. The clomp, clomp, clomp of Sasha's clogs on the wooden staircase wakes me, though they seem louder than usual, almost as if she's slamming each foot down as she slowly ascends, like nails being hammered into a coffin. I stir, only now realising I'm slumped on my desk with no memory of how I got here, nor how long I've been asleep. I instantly regret moving my head as a herd of tap-dancing elephants perform an encore inside my skull. They're even louder than Sasha's stomps. Something is wet at the corner of my mouth, and I quickly wipe the drool away with the back of my hand, just as Sasha marches in. "Morning," she coos as she passes the ajar door and heads through to her office space. "I can't believe you beat me in this morning," she calls out from the other room. I scour the fog in my brain, but don't remember why I would have raced into the office this morning. And when I look down and see I'm still wearing yesterday's clothes, I suddenly understand. Memories of singing and dancing in the Seven Stars flash through my mind's eye. I see my reflection in the large mirror behind the bar as I raise a large glass of wine in toast to myself. I see glimpses of Damien with his arm draped around my shoulders, insisting on buying my drinks for the rest of the night. Then a flash of us all downing shots of something transparent and wincing at the bitter aftertaste. Whose idea was it to do shots? I entered the Seven Stars with the intention of enjoying one glass of wine, and then I'd planned to come back here and tell Sasha that the feature interview for the Daily Bore was now off, as Peter Graves asked too many personal questions.